Hello, everybody, and welcome to Drop the Mic. My name is Moe Belliveau, and I am the Executive Director of the Chamber of Commerce, the Greater Easthampton Chamber of Commerce. And we are back in the studio with Ryan and Easthampton Media, and who are our partners in this project. So thank you very much for having us back here in the studio once again for our podcast project endeavor. And this is where I get to talk with chamber members, local business folks, thought leaders, entrepreneurs, and chat about who they are, what they do, and why they do it. And let's see, over the past couple of years, we've been not in the studio, and that was due to COVID, but we're back, and our conversation will probably touch here and there about that. But before that, we dive into things. I want to welcome today our guest, first back in the studio, president of Suite 3 Intelligent IT.
Very good.
Dave DelVecchio. I met Dave 7 years ago when I first came to Easthampton. Dave was part of the search committee for the chamber, and we got to interview together along with the search committee for my current position. So Dave is not only the president for Suite 3, he also has served many years on our board as most recently as president and treasurer, and has been an incredible partner with me in helping to revision and help the chamber to be the best that it can be. And I also consider him to be friend. So that's the lucky part. So let's get right into it. Dave.
Of course, the whole time I'm sitting here listening to you talk, I'm thinking about just giving you one-word answers through this entire podcast just to put you on edge.
No,
that's
don't do that.
That's how friendly we are. How can I annoy Mo and make this fun for me?
Yes, yes. It's kind of like that younger brother, older sister. What can the younger brother do to torment the older sister? So Dave, how the heck are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am over the moon, as you can see. So let's start right off and dive in. Tell us who you are.
Well, you kind of gave a pretty healthy bio there at the beginning, but I am president of Suite 3 in my day job. We're an IT services company based a couple buildings up here from Easthampton Media where we're recording this. We're over Mill 180, although we're not there that much anymore, speaking of the pandemic, right? Although as an essential business, information technology was deemed essential early on during the pandemic. We gave our employees the option. So if they wanted to work remote, they could work from home. If they wanted to go to the office, they could. We're 31 people now, but on any given day, like 7 is a high number, right? That'll work out of the office. So plenty of room for social distancing because we've got enough space for 30 plus. But
yeah, it's a nice big space, high
absolutely.
Ceilings.
Oh yeah, it's great.
Yeah, very nice. So what areas do you consider yourself to be an expert?
Keep
it narrow.
Yeah. Well, no, it's not that. It's more the opposite in that I prefer to practice strategic humility. I don't often give myself maybe credit that I should give myself to do, and it's not like a self-loathing thing or anything. It's actually more of the acknowledgement that as you gain information, you start to realize how much there is to know about a particular topic, and you realize how, given the scope of the subject matter, you actually only know a little bit of it.
Right.
But that only comes with experience and with expertise that's gained over time. So I think the place that I get the most enjoyment, I'll word it that way, out of what I do is really solving problems by putting teams together. And, the piece that I love is working with my staff to get them into positions to succeed so that they can do what they do very well and help support our clients as a result, which is also why the engagement with the chamber has been so strong, because I don't think it was by accident, even though I did not suggest it or wasn't even involved with it, but the Engage to Succeed, tagline of the chamber is built towards that as well. It's about putting pieces together to accomplish more. And that's really what I think I do best.
Right. Do you have any particular project or initiative that's going on right now that comes to mind that demonstrates that?
Oh, well, I mean, one of the constants with technology is change. If we didn't change our approach or technology mix over 10 years, our technology would be obsolete. So we're in a constant state of re-evaluating, do our solutions continue to solve the problems in the best way for our clients? So we're in the process of, sometimes it's a lot of the behind the curtain stuff that's happening. We're changing our whole backup infrastructure for our clients because one of the pain points we were feeling is the solution we were using, while it still was successful backing up data, the time to recover sometimes was getting longer and longer. And so we sought a solution that when a client needs to do a recovery, they need it back as quickly as possible. We're moving towards a solution that's cutting down that time. It's allowing us to recover more quickly. But it means we have to touch the backup infrastructure for 150 different businesses.
Right.
So it's like a 9-month process, and we're only in the first third of it. So those are the sorts of things we've got going on. There's never going to be a press release about it, but it's the nature of the sort of thing we have to complete in order to be able to kind of keep being viable and provide the best solutions for our clients.
Right. And it's very having been married to a network engineer, IT guy myself. It's really astounding how much really does happen behind the scenes, and how much updating and transferring and switching over and mirror image, blah blah blah.
Yeah,
it's like,
I mean, it's somebody said to me years ago
that nobody's going to know about.
No, it's IT is an iceberg, right? It's the whole thing. What you see above the surface, which is the end user experience, is the most important thing, because people only really notice it when they're having problems. And the problems that you see on the surface quite often are the end result of ripple effects that started below water, right? Below the waterline, with all of that behind the scenes stuff you don't see. And so because of all of that stuff that just happens behind the curtain, it's a 24/7 sort of scenario, which is also a challenge because especially, through the pandemic, where we're all challenged in our personal lives as well, you're dealing with, vulnerabilities and 0-day threats where we had to have folks working 24 hours to get clients patched so they weren't vulnerable in a timely fashion. It burns people out. I mean, there's a big burnout in our industry. And so what we try to do as an organization is give people the work-life balance, let them have some flexibility during work hours when necessary. And we've grown as a company large enough where we can do that, where if somebody needs to take an afternoon off, they can do so, and it doesn't impact our service delivery in the afternoon. But in return for that flexibility, you might have to work on a Saturday night to do an emergency patch if we call an all hands on deck. And I've got a mature enough staff that they appreciate that sort of flexibility, and we don't abuse it, and they don't abuse it. And it's been a key component of our success, is giving people that sort of flexibility for the personal life, but answer the bell when we need it done.
Well, it feels to me like there's a strong sense of loyalty that has been built upon because of that philosophy. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm really proud. I mean, it's one of the things I'm most proud of is the fact that our average employee has been with us over 11 years.
Wow.
And so we've done a really nice job of attracting folks that have bought into our vision and mission and understand what we're about. And if it's a good fit, which I think one thing that I've learned to do over the years is to determine, and it's not 100%. Once in a while, you misread a situation where it ends up not working out. But generally speaking, on average, 2 out of 3 hires that we do stay with us. And when I say stay with us, not for a year or two, but indefinitely.
Right.
So that's we've been in business over 30 years. We've got 31 employees. We've in our history have had less than 110. So the amount of retention we've been able to pick up and maintain, we don't churn employees. We've been able to retain a base because it's been a good cultural fit. And I'm proud of that. And I'm proud of them because it's a two-way street.
Right. That's pretty cool. Yep. So tell me something about your expertise that you wish people knew that they might not know.
Oh, we kind of touched on part of it, which is, what you see on the surface is only a small component, and a lot of effort happens behind the scenes to make
in
that.
Shadows.
Yeah, and the fact is, there's so many variables involved that can just monkey with stuff, right? And one of the big challenges we faced this year was the cycles between these kind of exploits and vulnerabilities and 0 days, these security threats. Quite often, the way bad guys gain access to an environment is by taking advantage of a insecure piece of software or something that allows them in a back door. Well, the speed in which a vulnerability is announced and then bad guys start leveraging it is compressing.
Right. It's like instant.
Right. Which is what's known as a 0 day. And that's where you're trying to educate clients on, an exploit is a vulnerability that's being leveraged by bad guys. And a 0 day is when that exploit is happening as soon as the vulnerability is announced, meaning there's already activity happening where people are taking advantage of this.
So scary.
So the amount of time that we have to put fixes in place in order to be able to mitigate those risks is compressed. So that's challenge 1. Challenge 2 is that sometimes the fix is as bad as the disease,
right.
Meaning a software vendor will come out with a patch that fixes the vulnerability, but it breaks something else.
Oh, yeah.
And so there were tons of stories of like Microsoft updates that all of a sudden broke printing for, weeks
I remember
on
that.
end, right?
I remember that one. That's pretty recent, actually.
Yeah, well, it's happened twice, and that's it. Once more recently, once back in March. And so those are added challenges because the end user only wants to print, right? And
my email.
Right. So sometimes it's a matter of, hey, all I'm seeing is I can't print. I could print yesterday. What's going on?
Yeah.
Well, we avoided potential exploit because we had to put a patch in that unfortunately caused an unintended consequence. And so that's where the piece that I hope people realize is sometimes that what you see is the result of actually trying to do the right thing.
Right.
And because the alternative is just ignore it, bury your head in the sand, but that's going to lead to a much bigger issue. Better to deal with an inconvenience like not printing until Microsoft releases the subsequent fix than, actually deal with something like a ransomware event.
Right. So what is the best part of your role as in Suite 3 and I'm thinking about your why, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and if it's connected.
Yeah. I mean, and this goes back, I first was aware of what my why was in the 90s. Yeah,
I love that.
Right? So this was a long time ago, and it was one thing I tend to try to be is a little bit self-aware.
Well.
But I recognize that this was when we were still in Florence. We were small, and we were open to the public community IT shop, and we had sold a computer to a gentleman who was he owned a pottery studio, and he was subsequently featured in the Monday Business Edition when the Gazette used to do like a business profile every Monday in the paper. His picture in an article about his business was featured, and he was sitting on his desk, and in the background on his credenza was the computer that I had sold him. And so now I was looking at his picture and actually sent him a note saying, hey, I saw that, you in the paper, great article, saw our computer in the background, glad, you're getting value out of it, whatever. And he ended up swinging by the office and brought me a mug and like a little thank you note because I, had sent him the acknowledgement of the article. And that's when I realized what I most enjoy about what we do is the fact that through our efforts, we enable our clients to do whatever they do, whether it's make pottery or run an insurance company or whatever. And so it's that additive, supportive aspect is one aspect that makes me really driven about what we do. Nice. The other piece, as I was talking about before, is I do love team building, and I love working with our people. And I love trying to give people an opportunity to get some satisfaction about the work that they do so that they are feeling successful professionally and can be successful personally and so forth, because to try and make them have the ability to be well-rounded in their life experience as well, get some satisfaction.
Nice. What do you like the least?
Boy, I'll tell you, it's the knowing that, professionally from the cybersecurity standpoint that we were talking about, that we're not taking on a 13-year-old kid in his mom's basement. We're taking on government-sponsored hacker groups, from North Korea and Ukraine and everywhere else. So it's a mature enemy that and they only have to be right once, right? We have to be right every time.
All the time.
Right. And so the scope of the challenge, when you really think about it, is it can keep you up at night. Right. The other half of it is, okay, well, if I'm getting pleasure out of trying to give my folks an opportunity to be their best selves, we're also responsible for a lot of mouths to feed when you think about that. And so trying to make sure that we're making decisions and doing things that are going to do right by all of our stakeholders, our clients, our employees, our families, and so forth. That when you stop and think about it, heavy is the head that wears the crown sort of thing. Right. But I don't take that lightly, So.
Right. Yeah, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, for a lot of people. What's the best business advice you've ever gotten?
I'll take this a little bit broader and say best advice, period.
Okay.
When I was a very young person, at an age when I probably shouldn't have remembered this, my father said to me, right? Well, there's the old Mark Twain comment about at 14, I couldn't realize what an idiot my father is. And at 21, I couldn't believe how much he learned in 7 years. Paraphrasing, It's something like that. I was probably around that age, 14 or 15. And my father said to me, whenever you have an opportunity to learn how money works, take it. Mm-hmm. Because ultimately there are just truths that exist in markets, right? And so whether it's investment advice, whether it's learning how loans work, right? Mm-hmm. And as a father now of high school kids, my daughters regret that was the piece of advice that I welcomed the most, because if we start having a conversation, it doesn't take much for me to veer into a discussion about, why it's a good time to refinance, right? I'm trying to impart upon my daughters good advice so that they get the sort of lessons and have the understanding of how money works that they can apply as they get older. Yeah. They're high school seniors. Like, they have no interest in most of this conversation most of the time. And so they just know dad as they don't know the character because they haven't watched Cheers. But I'm kind of like a Cliff Clavin, where you ask me what time it is, I tell you how to build a watch.
Right. Yes.
But I'll tell them about how it is. But I'll tell them about how money works and things like that, because that was probably one of the best pieces of advice that I didn't take as seriously when I was in my 20s or even 30s. But now looking back on it, you get that perspective that time provides. It's like, man, if I knew then what I know now.
Well,
right. And the simple things like the power of time on compounding a return, right? Yes. For every dollar you invest at 20 is worth like $6 by the time you retire. It's like, maximize your 401k, put money in place for retirement. And my daughter wants nothing to do with it. My stepdaughter, bless her soul, she's going to be like running the country someday.
Good for her.
Her goal, she's like a super saver. Her goal is to be able to afford her first house when she graduates college, sort of thing.
Good for her.
She's got goals. And so I've been teasing my daughter, she better be nice to her sister because she'll need her someday.
Yeah, right. That's funny. What's the worst advice you've ever gotten?
Customer's always right.
Yes. Tell me why.
Yeah. I mean, we are an expert, right? And every member of the chamber is an expert in some field. Yep. And there's nothing worse than having a client who comes to you because they have a need, who then tell you what it is that you need to do to solve it. And it's like, well, if you had the answers, you probably wouldn't have needed my help.
Right.
You've come to me, whether the me is IT, whether it's an insurance provider, whether it's a financial institution, whether it's a therapist. You're coming to that resource with a question that they're better positioned to solve. Take the advice.
Yes. I have discovered that my life has become so much easier since I have decided, let the experts do their job.
No kidding, right?
Call me when it's done.
Well, and sometimes you realize there are things that you're good at that you can take on, or at least do well. I'll paint a room. Right? I can do interior painting. I will never hang a curtain rod for the rest of my life because I am physically incapable of hanging a straight curtain rod. I would rather pay somebody, and even if they hang it crooked, I'll accept it because, well, I paid a professional to do it.
Yeah, that's right.
But if I hang it crooked, then I'm going to look at that curtain rod and be upset the rest of my life. So there's times where it makes sense to just deal with a professional who's done it before. And so usually when I reach a frustration point with a client, it's because that they have decided that they've shut down and they don't want to take advice anymore. Right. And that's the piece that I get most frustrated with.
Right.
It
seems to me like that's a long, slow burning fuse for you.
Yeah.
My experience with you is that is what it's been.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It takes a long time to get there because, sometimes it takes multiple iterations for people to have it finally sink in.
Yeah, right. The light bulb goes on.
Or, maybe an incident happens where they reprioritize and they understand what you've been trying to explain all along. And, but that process of, well, I'm hiring you, but I need you to do it my way. It's a hard thing to get done. And so, again, one thing I like to pride myself on is being somewhat self-aware. My goal is to always be my vendor's favorite client. Mm-hmm. It's to treat others the way you want to be treated. Like, I'm not going to tell our marketing company how to do a print ad. Right. I'm going to tell you the market we're going after, and I'm going to expect you to provide your expertise to actually put it in a meaningful package that's going to be meaningful for the audience we're trying to reach.
Right.
I don't want to do your job.
Right.
And so
Got your own job to do.
that's probably the biggest challenge.
Right.
That is the most frustrating.
So that leads me to my next question, which we may have already answered, is what is your biggest business challenge?
Well, that's one.
Yeah.
And we talked about. I always use the example of like Sergei in the Ukraine, right? It's the malicious actors that are out there.
Yeah.
Whoever's behind the whatever threats are out there from a cybersecurity standpoint is obviously a giant challenge. With the retention we've had, we've been fortunate in our industry. Recruiting and retaining talent is a big concern. I've been fortunate that hasn't been as big of an issue for us. One thing we've had is stability. And again, that's not something I take lightly because it is a two-way street. The fact of the matter is there's not an employee who works for me that couldn't find a job for next Monday if they wanted to leave, because folks that have the experience they have, not even technical, but they have even the folks who do the, scheduling have a certain level of technical knowledge that would be valuable in other places, yet they choose not to. I'm proud of that.
Nice.
I'm proud of that personally, that they've entrusted me with that. But and I don't take that lightly. But that the fact that we haven't had that challenge of staffing, I think,
nice.
is
Says a
one
lot.
that it does. But it's one that I'm proud that I don't have to list as the
Right,
biggest challenge is finding good people.
Right.
Yeah.
Because that is a big one.
Yeah.
With those who I speak with as of late.
Yep.
What trend in 2020 that has accelerated during 2020 thanks to the pandemic? What trends?
Oh, well, in technology, there's been several. And, in fact, actually, that question is interesting in that I've seen other articles saying that the pandemic didn't really invent new trends. It just accelerated them.
Yeah.
Right. And so the two of the biggest are remote work. Right, the work from anywhere, work from home sort of scenario, and that the further adoption of moving towards cloud, which is related to that.
Yeah.
Historically, we've had a lot of clients that, for different reasons, were a little bit leery.
I'm one.
Right, and they wanted. I like to refer to it as having lunch with your data. Right, they had the file server in the office, had all of their information on it. It gave them a warm and fuzzy.
It does.
And in certain industries. I give you an example. I know of a couple law firms that were always reluctant to allow remote work because in their case, they were scared that a junior attorney was going to steal all of their data and go to another firm.
Right.
And they were going to lose those relationships and things. And so what happened was the pandemic hit, and companies who famously, I will never allow people to work remotely, were calling us saying, I need everybody to be able to work remotely as quickly as possible out of sheer need. It was interesting that as quickly as maybe 3 months later, I was having follow-up conversations with people who are saying, I don't know why I wasn't allowing this before. This is the greatest thing that's ever happened. It's so much better. It allows people to, the people are still as productive as they were when they were in the office, but they have the flexibility to help their kids with remote learning. And all of a sudden they became these big proponents for remote work. And so I don't see that being something that's going to go back. Nobody's going to turn the remote access servers off if the pandemic were to end tomorrow.
Nope.
So that's something that we've seen accelerate. And then the other piece is some folks have, think about a typical small business. Every small business tends to have one or two applications that are key to what they do, right? So, their scheduling application, whatever it happens to be, ERP, enterprise resource planning for like a manufacturing company. Then they run Office and they have email and normal stuff. Well, a lot of those line of business applications have moved to the cloud. They've moved QuickBooks Online. They've moved, their email to Microsoft 365 and things, and using Office Online. And all of a sudden you look up, and there might be one or two legacy things they're doing on-prem, but it's easy to move those to cloud-based too. So a lot of companies are moving serverless. And, so that moving to cloud-only sort of, in cloud-first sort of mindset has greatly expanded. I could count on one hand the number of clients that were cloud-only pre-pandemic. And now, I would predict that by the end of this year, close to half of our clients will either be fully cloud-based or will be on the path towards being cloud-only in a meaningful way by the end of this year.
Right. Interesting.
Yep.
Gotta love that. What is your biggest insight relative to your business due to COVID that you've gotten over the past 2 years?
Wow, biggest insight due to COVID. probably that. The perspective that's changed from the employee-employer relationship.
Yep.
I think employees realize they have a lot more power in that relationship than they did in the past, which has led to the Great Resignation and things in certain industries. And because that flexibility of work from home and what being able to access cloud information from anywhere as long as you have an internet connection has afforded employees, it's affording them the opportunity now to work in a way they didn't work before. We have an employee who is spending more time in Indianapolis than in Western Massachusetts currently due to some personal life experience things they're going through, and we can do that. We can have a person work out of Indianapolis as easily as working out of Chicopee or somewhere. Right. So from that perspective, I think that there's been a lot of change in terms of perspective because of the pandemic. That not even from a technology standpoint that are going to end up standing the test of time as well.
Nice. So, what book are you reading now?
Ooh, I just got one. I recently had a birthday. I haven't.
Dave and I like to exchange book titles, so
yes.
I'm curious.
Well, all right, I'll give you a few. So I like to kind of pivot between kind of lighthearted, a little bit deeper, maybe mix a business book in, and I'll kind of just cycle through so I don't get in too big of a rut.
Give me two titles.
Geez. What the heck was the title now? I just read, well, I just got the Dave Grohl book. That was given to me for my birthday. Dave Grohl, the former drummer of Nirvana.
Oh.
He's the guy behind Foo Fighters.
Yep.
I think it's called Storyteller. I just received that for my birthday, so that one's queued up to read. I also have, I'm in the middle of reading, oh, geez, I'm blanking on the name. It's a book about Wall Street in the 80s, about Solomon Brothers, and I'm blanking on the name of the title now, and I can see the cover sitting on my book stand. Honestly, it's not holding my attention, and about 40% of the way through, so I might end up giving that up and jumping into the Dave Grohl book.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll X that one out.
Yep. I also read a book, Collins is the guy's last name, but it was a book that, this is the thing, is I can tell you the premises, but I'm awful with names of authors and book titles. But the book was written by the gentleman up in Bangor, Maine, police department.
Oh, yes.
That he took over social media for them, and it became like a worldwide sensation.
Yep.
And it was his story about how he took on that responsibility and started writing the police blog articles, but did it from a creative writing perspective. And it was great because the first half of the book was that story, but then the back half of the book were basically the best of his articles.
Nice.
And so it was a nice, easy, lighthearted read, because I tend to do my reading, with a no screen wind down, like we were describing before we started recording, right? End of the day, last half an hour, 2 hours, whatever. Don't look at screens. So I like to do my reading right before I go to sleep, and so it's that sort of a book is a great read for that time of day. Right. Because it was lighthearted for the most part, a couple deep stories about some events that as a police officer he was privy to. But the chapters were quick. And I always prefer that because you know how it is when you're reading before bed. It's like, oh man, I got 18 pages left in this chapter. I want to finish the chapter. Give me a 5-page chapter anytime, because I'll get through the end of that.
I'm currently reading, I can't remember the author, but it's Aging Well.
Oh, there you go.
Right?
That's the challenge.
So there's one song on your one song absolutely has to be on the soundtrack of your life?
Oh, man. All right, that's the hardest question you've asked. One song on the soundtrack of my life. Well, I guess it depends on the audience of where it's going to be. I guess one would be, for sentimental reasons, for Emily Wherever I May Find Her.
Aw.
I'm going to cry.
Oh,
it's my daughter.
Nice, Dave. Oh, Dad. Yes.
The other piece, let's see, what else is there? There was a few times I was interviewed on the radio where I would make them always use either James Gang or, why am I blanking on his name now? The guitarist. Who's the guy behind the James Gang? Joe Walsh. Joe Walsh, thank you. We'll edit this out, too. When I was interviewed on the radio, they would always use either James Gang or Joe Walsh songs, so we'll have to throw something like that. So I'm not going to give you a single song. You're going to have to get a set list for what set list would I need for my soundtrack. That would definitely be in there.
Okay.
And we'll throw a couple originals in there too that are meaningful to nobody else but me.
Yes.
But having played in bands and stuff growing up, there are a couple of songs that either I wrote or like my good friend that I grew up with, Jody, wrote that are very meaningful to me. I'll throw a couple of those in on my soundtrack too.
Nice. Nicely done, Dave. So what's up for, next for you?
There's a lot, man. I mean, it's one of those things. Again, professionally, the thing that's fortunate with our industry is that every 5 years it completely changes. So this is where, when you ask questions about like what are things that you're working on, and I'm talking about something as inglorious as modifying our backup infrastructure. I actually do find things like that invigorating and exciting. And so we're looking at a lot of both existing solutions that we're looking to improve upon, but also taking some new solutions in some new directions, because as clients do things like move to cloud-based computing, there are additional services that need to be included in that to make it a good experience, right? Because again, that water line, in order to have the end user experience be positive, there's a different mix of things that are required below the water. So we're really excited about adding some additional services to improve the end user experience as folks move to that environment. In the meantime, we're always monitoring for things like time to respond, time to schedule, time to repair, and making sure that from a service delivery standpoint, we're making or exceeding expectations. Again, to some, it might sound like the blocking and tackling and the inglorious stuff, but I also am a person who, if we can improve that performance by 5 minutes, that's a huge win to me. So looking at ways to make sure that we can incrementally get better in all aspects of what we do, because again, we cannot keep doing the way things have always been done.
No.
And it's funny because we have some clients that, and to a certain respect, they can. We work with a company who manufactures caskets, right? And on the one hand, they've been doing the same thing. The physical construction of casket making hasn't changed. It's a skill. It's a box. It's a trade like anything else.
Right.
Meanwhile, you go into their facility now, they've got monitors on the boards with all of their delivery schedules and what stage of manufacture they're in, and they've computerized and updated their operations.
Oh, there you go.
But you still assemble a casket the same way.
Right.
So I like it. I like how in some industries maybe change is a little bit more glacial and change happens slower, and they'll adopt those changes to improve production.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, they're still making the same skills and trades to manufacture what they do hasn't changed.
Right.
In our industry, it's changing all the time.
Oh, right.
And so that's
you wake up in the morning and you're like, what happened?
Yeah. And but that's also part of what lights the fire under you.
Right.
And so that's where one thing that I don't always recognize is the pace at which we work is a little bit of an anomaly in some industries.
Right.
But if you don't internalize it and accept it, it's going to chew you up.
Right.
So that's what makes me excited is, what's next.
Right. That's pretty awesome, Dave.
Yep.
Thank you so much.
I think we set out for this to be about 5 to 10 minutes, and we just took an hour.
I knew that was going to happen, but that's okay. We'll figure that out, and we'll edit it down because Ryan is a wizard. So where can people find you if they want to know more?
Yep. Well, when we're not working from home, I'm over at Mill 180. We're on the first floor over there is where our office is located. But you can find us at suite3.com. Heck, call Moe at the Chamber. She knows where I am pretty much all the time, and she has my cell phone, so she'll get in touch with me.
I'll find him. I'll track him down. All right, excellent. Well, thank you for being here and kicking off 2022 with me here and Ryan in the studio. We are the Greater Easthampton Chamber of Commerce, and if you'd like to know more about the Chamber, you can get a hold of me at info@easthamptonchamber.com or give the Chamber a call, and we'd love to chat with you. And you can listen to this podcast or view this podcast on anywhere that you like to get your podcast fix. So that's that. And I want to remind you to smash the like button, share, subscribe, and we'll be off and running. And this will be up on Easthampton Media's YouTube channel also, so make sure that you like and subscribe to that as well. And I think, aside from thanking Ryan for today and Jeff and the whole team here at Easthampton Media, Peace out.
Peace out. Engage to succeed.
Cheers.